The crystalline spire pierced the artificial atmosphere of Nexus Station, refracting starlight into 1,000 rainbows across its gleaming surface. Dr. Eliza Chen squinted against the glare as her diplomatic shuttle approached the docking bay, her stomach nodding with each passing second. "Nervous, Ambassador?" Commander Jackson's voice pulled her attention from the viewport. The veteran soldier sat across from her, his scared face impassive, but his eyes alert. "Just remembering the last time humans tried joining an interstellar coalition," she replied, unconsciously touching the data crystal hanging at her throat, a memorial containing the names of the 300,000 who died during first contact. The shuttle settled onto the landing pad with a gentle hiss. Through the viewport, Eliza spotted the welcoming committee, 3 spindly Veriki in formal robes, their translucent skin revealing the complex network of neural pathways beneath. "Remember, no neural compliance scans," she murmured to Jackson as the airlock cycled open. Standard Federation protocol or not, Earth security was clear on that point. The lead Veriki stepped forward, 4-fingered hands extending in the universal greeting gesture. "Ambassador Chen, welcome to the Nexus. I am Protocol Administrator Thalys. We are honored to welcome the 57th sentient species to the Galactic Federation." Its voice emanated not from its lipless mouth but from a small device at its throat. "The honor is Earth's," Eliza responded with practiced diplomacy. "Before proceeding to council chambers, we must complete standard security procedures." Thalys gestured to a silvery archway where other aliens were passing through, momentarily surrounded by a pale blue light. A simple neural compliance scan ensures no hostile intentions enter the Grand Council. Commander Jackson stepped between them. "Earth representatives are exempt from neural scanning. Our diplomatic accords were quite clear on this point." The administrator's skin flushed a deep purple. "This is most irregular. All representatives must." "Humans don't let strangers into our heads," Jackson interrupted, his hand resting casually near his ceremonial sidearm. "Neural sovereignty is non-negotiable for our species." Eliza watched with interest as the administrator's skin cycled through several colors before settling on a pale yellow. More interesting was how the other aliens in the docking bay had fallen silent, watching the exchange with what she recognized as nervous fascination. "Very well," Thalys finally conceded. "A physical scan will suffice, though I must register a formal protocol exception." "Register away," Jackson said with a tight smile. As they followed their escorts through gleaming corridors, Eliza noted the curious stares from representatives of dozens of species. Some appeared vaguely humanoid, others defied any terrestrial comparison. Floating gas sacs, crystalline structures that clicked and chimed, beams of pure energy contained in elaborate mechanical shells. The Federation currently comprises 56 member species arranged in a precise hierarchy of galactic citizenship, Thalys explained as they approached massive doors engraved with astronomical charts. The Great Council Chamber reflects this sacred order, with the most ancient and advanced civilizations seated in the front, progressing to the most recently admitted members in the rear. The doors parted, revealing a vast amphitheater filled with hundreds of delegates. Eliza's translator implant hummed with activity as it processed dozens of simultaneous conversations. "Your assigned position is Section 7, Row 22, Thalys indicated with a gesture toward the uppermost tier of seats, so distant from the central speaking floor that Eliza could barely make out the massive crystalline podium. "The back row," Jackson muttered. "Of course. It is an honor to be included at all," Thalys responded, seemingly confused by Jackson's tone. Many applicant species wait centuries for admission. As they made their way up the seemingly endless stairs, Eliza's translator suddenly emitted a sharp squeal before falling silent. She tapped the device behind her ear with frustration. "Technical difficulties," a raspy voice asked from her right. She turned to find a reptilian being regarding her with vertical pupilled eyes, a series of colorful scales flaring around its neck. Federation translation systems are notoriously unreliable for new species neural architecture. "Try this." It offered a small copper device. I shouldn't accept unsanctioned technology. Eliza hesitated. The reptilian scales rippled in what might have been amusement. Then you'll miss everything important happening in this chamber, Ambassador. I'm Kirkt, Dorjan Collective. We joined a century ago. It gestured to the device. This bypasses the official channels. You might find the unfiltered feed educational. Keep your head down and don't touch anything. Kirkt hissed, leading Eliza through a maintenance shaft so narrow that her environmental suit scraped against both walls. The copper translator device he'd given her 2 weeks ago was now permanently affixed behind her ear, its warmth a constant reminder of her decision to trust the reptilian diplomat. 3 levels below the public archives, the air grew stale. Kirkt's scales had dulled to a muted gray, camouflage mode, he'd explained earlier. The Federation keeps exhaustive records of everything, he whispered, but certain sections are restricted to all but the highest clearance levels. And you have this clearance? Eliza asked. Kirk's jaw clicked in what she'd come to recognize as laughter. No one from the back rows does. But maintenance drones require access everywhere, and their security protocols haven't been updated in millennia. They emerged into a cavernous space filled with glowing crystalline columns. Unlike the meticulously maintained public archives, dust covered every surface here, and several columns had fallen into disrepair. No one comes here anymore, Kirkt explained, approaching a dimly pulsing column. The Federation claims these records are outdated and preserved merely for historical completeness. His clawed fingers danced across the crystalline surface, activating ancient interfaces. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing streams of data in a script Eliza couldn't recognize. What am I looking at? She asked. Migration patterns, Kirkt replied. Every species that's allegedly evolved beyond physical form or transcended to higher dimensions in the last 50,000 years. His claws tapped a sequence, overlaying the datasets. Notice anything? Eliza studied the patterns, her background in synanthropology finally proving useful. These aren't natural population curves. They show sudden drops, followed by complete disappearance. Her voice trailed off as comprehension dawned. These weren't evolutions. These were extinctions. An alarm shattered the silence, red lights pulsing through the archive chamber. Kirkt grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a fallen column as security drones swept through the far entrance. Not for us, he whispered, eyes fixed on a monitor embedded in his forearm device. Something's happening. A priority emergency broadcast. The security drones departed as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving them alone again in the dusty archive. Kirkt's monitor projected a small hologram showing a star system Eliza recognized immediately. Proxima Centauri, she gasped. Our first colony. The hologram displayed a massive gravitational distortion forming near the system's edge, its wavefront already engulfing the outermost planets. Federation calculations projected total system collapse within 72 hours. We need to get to the emergency session, Eliza said, already moving toward the exit. The Grand Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 57 species filled every seat, their conversations creating a deafening cacophony that even the chamber's acoustic dampeners couldn't fully suppress. High Counselor Vexus, the ancient Archon representative, raised a withered hand for silence. The massive hologram of Proxima Centauri hung above the central platform, the gravitational anomaly now covering half the projection. We have analyzed the phenomenon, Vexus announced, her voice carrying a strange resonance that commanded attention. It represents a naturally occurring spatial instability. Unfortunately, there is nothing to be done. The system will be lost. Eliza watched the front rows carefully through her binoculars. The representatives of the ancient races, the Archons, Valoth, and Quarian ascendancy, showed no reaction to the pronouncement. The second-tier civilizations nodded solemnly in agreement, but her enhanced translator picked up something else. Whispered conversations, not in sorrow, but in satisfaction. Containment proceeding as expected, one Veloth representative murmured to another. Protocol ascension parameters maintained. Without thinking, Eliza was on her feet. Earth demands intervention. Her voice rang out, amplified by the chamber's acoustics in a way that shouldn't have been possible from the back row. A stunned silence fell over the assembly. No new species had ever interrupted council proceedings before. The colony can be evacuated, Eliza continued, stepping into the aisle. Humanity will leave the mission ourselves if necessary. Ambassador Chen, Vexus spoke with a brittle smile. Such interruptions are not protocol. The natural cosmic process cannot be interfered with. The Federation has determined. Federation Charter, Article 437. Subsection 12. Eliza called out, grateful for the sleepless nights she'd spent memorizing the massive document. Any member species may mount self-rescue operations for their own kind when facing extinction-level events, regardless of council determination. The silence deepened as thousands of eyes turned toward Vexus, whose ancient face betrayed a flicker of surprise. Or was it alarm? Very well, the High Counselor finally responded. Humanity may attempt its rescue. The Federation bears no responsibility for the outcome. As Eliza returned to her seat, Kirk leaned close. They agreed too easily, he whispered. They're expecting you to fail. Or, Eliza replied quietly, they're hoping we'll find something they don't want found. Captain Maya Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, studying the tactical display with narrowed eyes. The gravitational anomaly had grown in the 12 hours since they'd arrived, now engulfing Proxima Centauri's outer planets completely. On the main view screen, the colony world Proxima b displayed ominous seismic readings, its tectonic stability deteriorating by the hour. Status report, she demanded, the burn scars along her jawline tightening as she clenched her teeth. Evacuation proceeding at 63% capacity. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. Estimated completion in 9 hours. We don't have 9 hours, interjected Dr. Patel, the ship's science officer. His hands moved rapidly over his console, dark eyes reflecting scrolling data. The anomaly's acceleration rate has increased by 22% in the last hour alone. Maya studied the assembled bridge crew, humans working alongside 3 other species whose governments had officially forbidden their participation. A Dorjan navigator whose scales pulsed with nervous energy. A Tellerate engineer whose 4 arms operated multiple systems simultaneously. A Nyx communications specialist whose translucent skin revealed the racing thoughts beneath. Volunteers, all of them, risking everything because they suspected what Maya now believed. The Federation was hiding something. Captain, Dr. Patel called, his voice suddenly tense. I'm detecting unusual harmonics within the gravitational wave patterns. They're artificial. Maya moved to his station. Explain. Natural gravitational anomalies show random quantum fluctuations, Patel explained, highlighting a section of the waveform display. These patterns are structured, like frequencies generated by quantum manipulation technology. The signature matches classified Federation specs. Someone engineered this disaster, Maya concluded, her voice hardening. Target location. Patel's fingers flew across the controls. Source appears to be beneath the colony's main geothermal plant, epicenter of the worst quakes. Maya tapped her comm unit. Bridge to strike Team Alpha. Gear up. We're making planetfall in 20 minutes. The colonial geothermal plant shuddered around them, structural integrity failing as increasingly violent tremors rocked the facility. Emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows across the abandoned control room, while klaxons wailed in persistent warning. This way, called Lieutenant Chen, the team's engineer, leading them toward a maintenance shaft that shouldn't have existed according to the facility plans. Ground-penetrating radar shows a large cavity 30 meters below. Maya checked her tactical display. The evacuation fleet reported 82% completion, but the gravitational anomaly was accelerating faster than predicted. They were running out of time. The maintenance shaft ended in what appeared to be solid rock, but Chen's scanner revealed otherwise. Holographic concealment, he muttered, adjusting a device attached to his wrist. The rock facade flickered and disappeared, revealing a perfectly circular chamber beyond. At the center stood a towering machine unlike anything Maya had seen in human technology, a lattice of crystalline rods surrounding a pulsing core of what appeared to be liquid light. Federation markings covered its control surfaces. Federation Quantum Manipulator, Chen confirmed, circling the device cautiously. But this design, it's ancient, centuries beyond current tech levels. Dr. Patel connected his scanner to the device's interface. It's generating the gravitational distortion deliberately, using the planet's core as an amplifier. This isn't a natural disaster. It's a weapon. As they worked to understand the machine, a holographic interface suddenly activated on its own. A disembodied voice echoed through the chamber. Protocol ascension continues as scheduled. Witnessing species containment underway. The message repeated once before the transmission abruptly terminated. The team exchanged alarmed glances. "Can we shut it down?" Maya demanded. Chen examined the controls. "I think so, but..." A proximity alarm blared from Maya's tactical wrist unit. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL in orbit reported the Nix communication specialist through their secure channel. "Federation warships, Captain. They're charging weapons." "On what grounds?" Maya demanded. "They're broadcasting a quarantine declaration, claiming they're containing a natural disaster zone for the safety of nearby systems." Maya locked eyes with her team. "They're not here to help with evacuation. They're here to ensure no one survives to report what we found." "Captain," Chen intervened, "I can reconfigure this device to collapse in on itself, but the resulting implosion could destabilize the planet's core completely." "How long do we have after activation?" "Maybe 30 minutes before critical failure." Maya activated her fleet-wide comm. "All evacuation vessels, this is Captain Okonkwo. Priority override Alpha. Complete loading operations and prepare for immediate emergency departure. We have 30 minutes before total planetary collapse." She turned to Chen. "Do it. Then get to the shuttle. We're leaving evidence they can't bury." As the team raced back toward their landing craft, Maya cast one final glance at the alien device. The Federation had deliberately targeted a human colony for destruction. The question was no longer whether the Federation was hiding something, but how big that something truly was. "Evasive pattern Delta 7. Maya shouted as the Defiant shuddered under another barrage from the pursuing Federation vessels. The view screen showed the massive gravitational distortion behind them collapsing in on itself, the doomed colony world beginning to break apart as they fled. "That last hit damaged our primary shield generator," the Tellerate engineer reported, all four hands working frantically across emergency systems. "One more direct hit and we're finished." "Can we make the jump to FTL?" Maya demanded. The Dorsian navigator's scales had gone completely white with stress. "Negative, Captain. The gravitational fluctuations are too severe for a clean jump. We need at least 3 light minutes of clear space. And we got Federation warships between us and clear space," Maya concluded grimly. The Nix communications officer suddenly straightened. "Captain, I'm detecting a coded transmission on an unusual frequency. It's using an old Earth encryption algorithm, but modified with Dorsian mathematical principles." "Put it through," Maya ordered. A series of coordinates appeared on her personal display, followed by a simple message: "Asteroid field. Kelteri mining outpost. Friends waiting." Maya studied the coordinates, a dense asteroid field notorious for its navigational hazards, precisely the kind of place Federation warships would hesitate to follow. "Helm, set course for these coordinates. Full impulse. Tactical, deploy our remaining sensor buoys behind us. Program them to emit signatures matching our engine configuration." As the Defiant and its small fleet of evacuation ships altered course, the sensor buoys created a convincing electronic ghost fleet, continuing on the original trajectory. The Federation warships took the bait, pursuing the phantom signals. "It won't fool them for long," Maya noted. "Make for that asteroid field at maximum sustainable speed." Eliza paced the cramped confines of the abandoned mining outpost's central chamber, her eyes fixed on the antiquated communication array that represented their only link to Maya's fleet. Thirk monitored the system's perimeter sensors, his scaled fingers moving with practiced efficiency across the controls. "Still no sign of pursuit," he reported. "The asteroid field's electromagnetic interference is masking their approach effectively. If they made it at all," Eliza said quietly. The communication array suddenly crackled to life. Data began streaming across the monitor. Detailed sensor logs, visual recordings, and energy signature analyses from Proxima Centauri. "They made it," Kirk confirmed, scales rippling with relief, transmitting evidence of Federation involvement in the colony's destruction. Eliza studied the data with growing horror. The quantum manipulator's design, its deliberate placement beneath the colony's power center, the systematic way it had been programmed to mimic a natural disaster. None of this was improvised. The Federation had planned this meticulously. "I need to present this to the Council," she decided. "Force them to acknowledge what they've done." Kirk's vertical pupils narrowed to slits. "They'll deny everything. Claim the evidence is fabricated." "Perhaps," Eliza conceded, "but the public broadcast systems will be active for the emergency session. Every representative from every world will see what we've discovered before the Council can shut it down." The emergency council session was exactly as Eliza had predicted, a carefully orchestrated performance of concern and regret. High Councilor Vexus expressed profound sorrow for the natural tragedy that had claimed the human colony, while representatives from front-row species nodded in solemn agreement. When Eliza requested speaking privileges, the Council granted them with suspicious readiness. She approached the central platform, the data crystal containing Maya's evidence heavy around her neck. The destruction of Proxima Centauri was not a natural disaster, she declared, her voice steady as she connected the crystal to the podium's interface. It was deliberately engineered using Federation technology. The evidence appeared on the massive display screens, the quantum manipulator, its Federation markings clearly visible, the recorded message about protocol ascension. Vexus rose slowly from her seat, ancient eyes fixing on Eliza with an unreadable expression. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador Chen. However, the device you've discovered appears to be a standard gravimetric research instrument, likely installed by the colonists themselves." "That's a lie," Eliza countered. "This technology is centuries beyond human capabilities. Such instruments are often provided to developing worlds through our scientific exchange programs," another council member interjected smoothly. "Perhaps your colonial administration simply failed to file the proper documentation." Eliza stared in disbelief as the council methodically dismantled each piece of evidence, reframing the narrative with practiced ease. Within minutes, her irrefutable proof had been transformed into a tragic misunderstanding at best, human incompetence at worst. "We understand your grief, Ambassador," Vexus concluded with patronizing sympathy. "But necessary sacrifices are sometimes required for collective stability. The Federation has endured for 50 millennia by making difficult choices." Later that night, as Eliza entered her diplomatic quarters, the shadows moved. A figure lunged from behind the door, humanoid but wrong, its movements too precise. She barely avoided the blade that sliced through the air where her throat had been. In the struggle that followed, her attacker's face tore away, revealing not flesh, but an artificial construct covered in human skin. As she drove her ceremonial dagger into its central processing unit, the thing whispered its final words. "Protocol ascension requires complete specimen elimination. They've locked down every official channel," Kizert reported, his scaled fingers dancing across the Arctic terminal's interface. "Your diplomatic credentials have been revoked. The official story claims you suffered a psychological break after the Proxima tragedy." Eliza barely registered his words, still processing the assassination attempt from 3 days ago. They'd taken refuge in a forgotten maintenance level deep within Nexus Station, a labyrinth of abandoned corridors dating back to the station's original construction thousands of years earlier. "Focus on decoding these," she said, placing a collection of data crystals on the makeshift workstation. After escaping her quarters, she'd made one desperate stop at the restricted archives, grabbing whatever she could before security drones descended. The crystals contained records far older than anything they'd accessed before, fragmented historical documents that predated the Federation's current iteration. Most were corrupted, their contents degraded by millennia of neglect, but scattered pieces remained readable. "Look at this," Kazurk called, projecting a holographic display from one crystal. Population metrics for the Zenth civilization, dated approximately 48,000 standard years ago. The display showed a thriving species spread across dozens of star systems, with advanced technology remarkably similar to the Federation's current standards. Then, over a period of less than 5 years, their population graph showed a catastrophic decline until it flatlined completely. "And here," Eliza added, activating another crystal. "The Myriad Collective, 47,900 years ago. Same pattern, rapid technological advancement, followed by sudden, complete extinction." Crystal after crystal revealed the same story. Species reaching technological maturity, then vanishing within remarkably similar timeframes. The pattern repeated approximately every 50,000 years, with one critical detail that sent ice through Eliza's veins. "The current front-row species," she whispered. "The Archons, the Valoth, the Quarian Ascendancy, they all rose to prominence immediately after the last extinction cycle. They weren't the original founders of the Federation," Kirk concluded, his scales darkening with shock. "They were the back-row species of their time, who somehow survived when the previous front row disappeared." A faint tremor ran through the station. Proximity alarms flashed on their security monitors. "Federation security drones," Kazurk hissed. "They've located us." Eliza grabbed the most crucial data crystals. "We need to reach Maya. The fleet is our only chance now." They navigated through maintenance shafts toward a rarely used auxiliary docking port, where a single pilot messenger craft awaited, arranged through Commander Jackson's underworld contacts. As they reached the final corridor, the wall beside them exploded inward. Security drones poured through the breach, weapon systems charging. "Go." Kazurk shoved Eliza forward, drawing an illegal disruptor pistol. "I'll hold them." "Not without you," she protested. "Someone must deliver the truth," he insisted, scales flaring in determination. "My people are next, Eliza." The tremors on our homeworld started yesterday. Understanding dawned on her face. The pattern was accelerating, another extinction cycle beginning. With a final nod to her ally, she sprinted for the docking port. Maya studied the sensor readouts, face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the tactical display. The Defiant and its small fleet of evacuation ships had found temporary sanctuary in the uncharted nebula, their systems powered down to avoid detection. "Captain," Dr. Patel called softly, "I've completed my analysis of the quantum manipulator's energy signature." The main display activated, showing a comparison between the Proxima device and dozens of other energy readings collected from various star systems over the past century. "These are identical harmonic patterns," Patel explained. "Each corresponds to a system where a civilization reportedly evolved beyond physical form or experienced a natural catastrophe leading to their decline." "How many?" Maya asked quietly. 27 in the past century alone. Each was a species approaching or just achieving interstellar travel capabilities. The Nix communications specialist suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, we're receiving an encrypted transmission on a frequency I've never seen before. It's coming from within the nebula itself." "Put it through," Maya ordered, hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. A holographic projection materialized on the bridge, the unmistakable form of a Federation dreadnought, its massive silhouette visible even through the nebula's interference. Captain Okonkwo. A voice resonated through the bridge speakers. I am Admiral Xen of the Federation Special Operations Division. We've been monitoring your investigation into Protocol Ascension. Maya's officers tensed, weapons ready, but the message continued. Not all within the Federation support the harvest cycle. There are things worse than extinction, Captain. If you truly wish to understand why we maintain the cycle, come alone to these coordinates in 12 hours. What I show you will change everything you believe about the Federation, and about the true threat facing all life in this galaxy. The Federation dreadnought Immutable Truth dwarfed Maya's shuttle as she approached the rendezvous coordinates. Despite her crew's vehement objections, she had come alone as instructed, carrying only a subspace emergency beacon and a concealed disruptor pistol. Captain Okonkwo, a voice announced over the comm system. Dock in Bay 7. You will not be harmed. Maya guided her shuttle into the massive docking bay, noting with professional interest the unusual lack of crew or maintenance drones in the cavernous space. When the bay repressurized, a single figure awaited her, tall and gaunt, with the characteristic luminescent skin markings of the Archons, eldest of the front-row species. Admiral Xen, Maya acknowledged, stepping forward cautiously. The Archon nodded. Up close, Maya was struck by the Admiral's appearance. Unlike the vigorous, ageless Archons she'd seen in Federation broadcasts, Xen looked ancient, skin dry and brittle, markings dim, connected to a floating life support apparatus that hummed softly. Follow me, Xen instructed, leading her through empty corridors. This vessel operates with a skeleton crew, all personally loyal to me. What I'm about to show you would be considered high treason by the Council. They entered a secured chamber deep within the ship. Inside was what appeared to be a medical facility, but the technology was unlike anything Maya had seen. Crystalline structures intertwined with organic components, pulsing with energy. What is this place? She asked. The truth, Xen replied simply, activating a control panel. A holographic display materialized, showing images that made Maya's blood run cold. Vast entities of impossible geometry, their forms defying physical laws as they moved between stars, consuming entire worlds. We call them the Harvesters, Xen explained. They visit our galaxy approximately every 50,000 years to collect advanced consciousnesses. We don't understand their purpose or origin, only that resistance is futile. The earliest records show what happened when civilizations tried to fight them. The display shifted to show entire star systems being systematically extinguished, planets shattered, space itself torn apart. The cycle isn't our creation, Xen continued. It's our burden. 50,000 years ago, my ancestors were like you, a back-row species fighting for recognition. When the Harvesters came, they destroyed the most advanced civilizations completely. Those of us who remained found their records, their warnings. Maya struggled to process the implications. So Protocol Ascension is a controlled culling, Xen finished. By selectively eliminating civilizations that reach certain technological thresholds, we prevent the Harvesters from detecting widespread advancement. We sacrifice the few to protect the many. That's monstrous, Maya whispered. It's survival, Xen countered, gesturing to the life support apparatus. This is the price of knowledge. Those who know the truth and manage the cycle pay with their life force. We don't control the Harvesters, Captain. We merely manage the inevitable culling to ensure some life survives. Xen's ancient eyes met hers. The back row isn't a demotion, it's protection. Species with potential who might survive to the next cycle. As Maya absorbed this revelation, a proximity alarm sounded. Xen checked a monitor, expression darkening. Federation security vessels. Hardliners who believe contact with you compromises the protocol. The Admiral handed Maya a data crystal. Take this. Proof of everything I've shown you. My ship will cover your escape. You're suggesting we trust the word of an Archon. Eliza demanded, pacing the cramped conference room of their hidden base in the abandoned mining system. Around the table sat representatives of 24 back-row species, each having risked everything to attend this clandestine gathering. "I'm suggesting we consider all possibilities," Maya replied calmly. "The data crystal contains historical records dating back over 200,000 years, far longer than this iteration of the Federation has existed." The Nyx communications specialist, now officially designated as Ambassador Lyria, raised a translucent hand. "My analysis confirms the authenticity of the records. The quantum entanglement patterns couldn't be falsified, even with current technology." "It changes nothing," insisted the Valoran representative, his crystalline form vibrating with anger. "Whether they created the threat or are merely managing it, they've condemned countless civilizations to extinction, including mine," added Kirk's replacement, a younger Dorsian whose homeworld was now experiencing coordinated geological catastrophes identical to those that had destroyed Proxima Centauri. "While we debate, my people are dying." Eliza stood, commanding attention. "The Federation's approach has one fundamental flaw," she declared. "It assumes sacrifice is the only option. That survival requires submission to an inevitable culling." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history: ice ages, plagues, world wars, climate collapse. "Humanity has faced near extinction dozens of times," she continued, "but we've never accepted it as inevitable. And we've never survived by sacrificing others. When faced with existential threats, humans have an unusual response. We unite." Commander Jackson stepped forward. "On Earth, we have a saying. The captain goes down with the ship, but we have another. No man left behind." These aren't contradictory philosophies. They're complementary. Leadership means responsibility, not privilege. A murmur ran through the assembled representatives as Eliza outlined her radical proposal, not to accept the cycle or compete for survival, but to stand together against both the Federation and whatever lurked beyond. "The Federation's error is treating this as a zero-sum game," she explained. "They believe some must die so others can live. Humans reject that premise entirely. And if you're wrong, challenge the Valoran. If resistance truly is futile, then we fall together," Eliza answered without hesitation. "But humans have always survived by refusing to accept inevitable defeat. And we've always fought hardest when protecting others, not just ourselves." One by one, the representatives signaled their agreement. The Back Row Coalition was born, not from shared fear, but from a shared refusal to accept extinction as necessary or inevitable. As the meeting concluded, Maya approached Eliza privately. "The harvesters are coming regardless. We have perhaps 6 months before they arrive. What's our actual plan?" Eliza's expression was resolute. "We do what humans have always done when facing impossible odds." She paused. "We change the rules of the game entirely. Security breach detected. All representatives proceed to designated evacuation points." The automated alert echoed through the Grand Council chamber as emergency lighting bathed the panicked delegates in pulsing crimson. But no one moved toward the exits. All eyes remained fixed on the central platform, where Eliza Chen stood, surrounded by representatives from 24 back-row species. Behind them, the massive display screen showed irrefutable evidence of the Federation's cyclical extinctions, not as interpretations or accusations, but as the Federation's own classified records. "How did they breach our security?" High Counselor Vexus demanded, her ancient face contorted with rage as she glared at her security chief. "They didn't," Commander Jackson answered from his position at the chamber's main control interface. "We've been inside your systems for weeks. You were so busy watching for external attacks that you never considered the maintenance drones you've ignored for millennia." He nodded to a small mechanical unit in the corner, its optical sensors glowing with an intelligence that standard drones shouldn't possess. Vexus raised a withered hand, and Federation guards moved to surround the central platform. "Arrest the insurgents," she ordered. "This session is terminated." "I think not." Maya's voice echoed through the chamber as she stepped forward. Your guards might want to consider that this broadcast isn't just reaching this chamber. She gestured to the status indicators on the displays. It's being transmitted to every Federation world simultaneously. The truth about Protocol Ascension is now public knowledge. Outside the chamber windows, the space around Nexus Station filled with ships, the combined fleet of the Back Row Coalition, alongside thousands of civilian vessels that had responded to their call. This is sedition, Vexus declared, but her voice had lost its commanding resonance. This is reality, Eliza countered. The cycle of extinction ends today. As if in response to her words, the chamber shuddered. The stars outside seemed to distort, space itself warping in patterns that defy comprehension. A collective gasp swept through the assembly as the long-range sensors displayed something massive approaching the edge of Federation space, entities of impossible geometry, moving between stars. "You fools," Vexus whispered, her rage giving way to terror. "You've drawn their attention. The harvesters weren't due for another decade, but your coalition's combined technological signature has accelerated their arrival." "Good," Eliza replied, her calm voice cutting through the rising panic. "We're done hiding." She stepped forward, addressing not just the Council, but the trillions watching across Federation space. For 50,000 years, the Federation has maintained power through fear. Fear of extinction, fear of advancement, fear of the beings they call the Harvesters. They've sacrificed countless civilizations to preserve this broken system, all while claiming there was no alternative. Maya joined her on the platform. "The evidence we've presented proves the Federation's complicity in genocide on a galactic scale. But more importantly, it reveals their fundamental failure of imagination." Vexus rose from her seat, trembling with age and emotion. "You understand nothing of the sacrifices we've made. We preserved civilization when all might have been lost. By becoming the very threat you claim to protect against," Eliza shot back. "You weren't preserving civilization. You were preserving your position at its apex." The chamber shuddered again as the long-range sensors showed the harvesters accelerating toward Federation space. Fear rippled through the assembly, representatives from all rows now united in their terror of what approached. Eliza activated a final display, a detailed technical schematic unlike anything the Federation had seen before. "Humanity didn't just discover your secrets, Counselor. We developed something the Federation never considered in 50,000 years of management." "A weapon?" Vexus asked, ancient eyes narrowing. "No," Eliza answered. "An alternative." The schematic expanded, revealing a vast network of interconnected technologies, elements from dozens of different species combined in ways that defied conventional understanding. "You maintain separation between species to control advancement," Maya explained. "We've done the opposite, combining the unique technological approaches of every coalition member to create something new. Not a weapon of destruction, but a shield of connection." "What you're proposing is impossible," declared a Valoth representative from the second row. "The harvesters cannot be stopped. They exist partially outside our reality. That's why conventional defenses fail." "Exactly," Eliza agreed, surprising him. "Which is why we're not trying to stop them in conventional space." She gestured to the schematic. "This network doesn't attack the harvesters. It unifies consciousness across all participating species, creating a collective presence that can engage with the harvesters on their own level." "You're proposing to negotiate with them?" Vexus asked incredulously. Commander Jackson stepped forward. "We're proposing to understand them, something you never attempted in 50,000 years of hiding." As the implications of their plan spread through the chamber, Vexus stared at the humans with newfound comprehension. "Now I see," she said softly. "This is why you chose the back row from the beginning. Not from humility or respect for our traditions, but because true leaders position themselves where they can see everyone who needs protection." Eliza finished for her. Outside, the stars continued to distort as the harvesters approached. Inside, the Grand Council chamber had fallen silent as the representatives of 1,000,000 worlds faced a choice: continue the cycle of fear and sacrifice, or embrace humanity's radical alternative? Vexus looked out at the assembled representatives, then back to Eliza. For the first time in millennia, the ancient Archon looked uncertain. "And if your plan fails?" she asked quietly. "Then we fail together," Eliza answered without hesitation. "But we will have failed trying to save everyone, not by sacrificing the many to preserve the few." 3 days after the Council showdown, the Grand Chamber had been transformed. The hierarchical rows of seats that had defined Federation politics for 50 millennia had been dismantled, replaced by a perfect circle of equal stations. Representatives from all member species worked side by side, their previous divisions forgotten in the face of the approaching harvesters. At the center of this unprecedented cooperation stood the integration node, a crystalline structure combining technologies from dozens of worlds. Dorsian quantum circuitry interfaced with Tellurite gravimetric stabilizers, Nyx bioneural networks enhanced Valoran energy matrices, and at its core, a deceptively simple human innovation, an algorithm designed not to repel or attack, but to translate and connect. "Final diagnostics complete," Dr. Patil announced, stepping back from the central console. "The network is operational across 78% of Federation space." Eliza studied the display showing thousands of nodes activating across the galaxy, each representing a world that had chosen to join the collective shield rather than face extinction alone. "It's not enough," Vexus observed from beside her, the ancient Archon having become an unexpected ally in the past days. "The harvesters will still perceive isolated pockets of advanced consciousness." "We don't need everyone," Maya countered, checking the strategic display. "Just enough to establish the pattern. Once the harvesters encounter it, they'll have to engage with us differently." Outside the station's massive viewport, space itself continued to distort as the vanguard of the harvester fleet approached. Vast entities whose forms seemed to exist partially in dimensions beyond conventional perception. "They're attempting to establish quantum anchors at these coordinates," reported a Quarian technician, highlighting several points on the galactic map. The anchors represented the harvester's first step in assessing which civilizations had reached harvestable levels of consciousness. "Initiate primary interface," Eliza ordered. Commander Jackson activated the sequence. Throughout Federation space, the integration nodes simultaneously pulsed with energy, creating a web of interconnected consciousness that transcended physical distance. Every participant, from council members to ordinary citizens who had volunteered, felt their awareness expand, joining with billions of others in a unified mental pattern, unlike anything the galaxy had experienced before. Through this collective consciousness, Eliza perceived the harvesters more clearly. They weren't merely predators or collectors. They were ancient intelligences searching for specific patterns of consciousness evolution. For 50,000 years, the Federation's management of technological development had inadvertently created exactly the isolated pockets of advancement the harvesters sought. "They're responding to the network," Maya observed, her voice echoing strangely through both physical space and the collective interface. The harvester vanguard had paused its advance, its quantum anchors reorienting toward the unprecedented pattern of unified consciousness. "Are they attacking?" asked a nervous Dorsian representative. "No," Eliza answered, sensing the shift through the collective interface. "They're curious." Through the network, she directed a deliberately shaped thought pattern toward the nearest harvester, not a plea for mercy or a threat of resistance, but an invitation for exchange. Something no species had attempted in recorded history. The response came not as words or images, but as conceptual impressions cascading through the collective consciousness. Ancient purpose, patient cultivation, cyclical harvest. The harvesters hadn't been destroying civilizations. They'd been collecting samples of evolved consciousness that matched specific parameters, preserving them for reasons beyond conventional understanding. "They're collectors," Eliza translated for those outside the interface. "They're preserving consciousness patterns they consider uniquely evolved. They have no concept that their collection process destroys the civilizations they sample." Then they're not malevolent? Vexus asked, her ancient face showing the strain of participating in the network. Not in the way we understood, Maya answered. They're operating on a completely different conceptual framework, like gardeners who don't recognize that harvesting a flower kills it. Through the interface, Eliza projected humanity's understanding of existence, the value of continuous collective evolution, rather than isolated peaks of advancement, the harm of their collection process, the alternative possibilities for mutual exchange. For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then, gradually, the Harvester Vanguard reconfigured itself. The quantum anchors dissolved, replaced by a different pattern of energy, one designed for sustained communication rather than collection. They're adapting, Eliza announced, relief evident in her voice. They're establishing a permanent communication channel with our network. They want to learn. As the immediate threat receded, Vexus approached Eliza at the central platform. The ancient Archon's eyes held a newfound respect. 50,000 years, she said quietly. 50,000 years of managing the cycle, and never once did we consider simply talking to them. Because you positioned yourselves at the front, Eliza replied gently. From there, you could only see the threat approaching, not all the possibilities behind you. Vexus nodded slowly in understanding. And now I could comprehend why humans instinctively choose the back row. It wasn't submission to hierarchy or acceptance of junior status. No, Commander Jackson confirmed, joining them. Humans have always known that true leadership happens from behind, where you can see everyone who needs protection. In the military, we call it bringing up the rear, the position of greatest responsibility, not the least. As representatives from hundreds of worlds celebrated their unexpected salvation, preparations began for a new kind of federation, one arranged not in hierarchical rows, but in a perfect circle, with humanity's position not at the back or front, but wherever they could best serve the whole. The cosmic truth was finally clear. Humans choose the back row, not from humility, but from wisdom, because only from there can you see everyone who needs saving.